What's going on YouTube Gen X? So I'm responding to a video, a recent video by Tanya TKO, um, getting a strong woman to be submissive. Um, Let me start here. I'm not trying to contradict anything that she has said in the video, not trying to combat with her or whatever. I just want to put it out there. First of all, I'm not married, right? So I'm not sitting here and saying that I'm an expert. But what I can tell you is that I grew up in that sort of black family that's a quote unquote myth. You know, that whole Cosby show, that wasn't real. For people like me, it was real. So not only did I grow up in that sort of two-parent home black family, I was around other black families who were similar to mine. So that's where I speak from. Where this whole concept of, submission or whatever was something that we saw every day. What troubles me, especially when we get into the whole concept of black women and submission, is that you guys are the ones who are in the church. Not saying you, Tanya TKO in particular, but most of the black women that you hear talking about this, talking about that, are the ones talking about, I'm also in church, yada, yada, yada. So I don't understand why the whole concept of submission is so hard. That's what's mind-boggling to me. Because you can't really understand the concept of submission, right, without properly understanding it in that church context. Because outside of it, it does sound outrageous. Submission. When you think of submission, you're thinking about a wrestling match where you're being pinned down and you're tapping out. So it makes no sense for the word submission to be brought up. And you have black women running to that concept of submission. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, where are you getting this from? The submission that gets brought up is a different type of submission. And like I said before, in a couple of videos before, so for those who haven't heard of me or whatever, I do have my channel on YouTube and Gen X or whatever. The whole concept of submission is one in which you don't see every day. There's only a certain amount of cases or scenarios where the wife or the girlfriend or whatever has to be put in a position where she has to submit. But for the most part, it's understood that when you're in a relationship, there are certain things in which the woman's going to defer to the man and the man's going to defer to the woman. Because she may have a better expertise in that area and he may have a better expertise in the other area. But more importantly, if you're dating and you're marrying somebody who's like-minded, the whole concept of submitting, right, this whole power struggle isn't really there because you're playing on the same team. The only time you have to deal with this whole concept of submission is when you're getting to those sort of major family-oriented decisions in terms of, maybe having to relocate, maybe having to move, where, yes, if the wife and the husband can't see eye to eye, if it doesn't make sense to one side, but most of the time, once again, if you're choosing the right type of person to be with, you guys are going to be on the same page. But in those few times where an important decision has to be made, right, but the wife and the husband or whatever can't come to a similar conclusion, yes, then you have that sort of, I got to come through, right, and flex my muscle, where you have to submit. Now, understand, as a man, he's doing so because he has to be the protector of the family. It is what it is. He has to be the protector of the family, and for men, they have to make choices that have nothing to do with emotion. Whereas with women, based off of women's own omission, sometimes make choices when emotion's involved, which can't be the best. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. But a man is supposed to be always rational. So there are times where he has to say, I know how you feel emotionally, but I have to trump that. Now, you have to understand, he's the head of that household. So when he's making that decision, whether or not you like it, he is factoring in how this is going to make you feel, what this means for the kids. You guys may not see that because, once again, children are children, right? Sometimes the women can be blinded by emotions. But for a man, he understands what it is. Case in point, growing up, both my parents did well. Before my parents divorced later on, right? And it wasn't one of those, oh, they divorced when we were little kids. They divorced when we were grown. My parents had the option to move, big house, beautiful area, but it was kind of far away from work. Far away from work. My mom wanted to make that move. You know, my mom loves big homes or whatever. She wanted to make that move. Better schools, yada, yada, yada. But my father pretty much had to say, no, we're not going to do it. And she was upset, you know, and there was this big sort of issue. But at the end of the day, she had to submit to what my father wanted, which was to stay. And guess what? It worked out because my dad was acting purely on rationalism. And he understood that the distance from work was too far. And not only was the distance to their particular jobs far, but he understood that if there's a change in employment status, right, that new job would also be well off in terms of being close enough to be home for the kids or whatever. And lo and behold, my mom sure enough got a new job. That if we would have moved, A, it would have been way too far for her to be commuting back and home. Or B, she wouldn't have taken the job. But she took the job, which put the family in a better position. And once again, that is a sole, that's not the word I'm looking for. That was entirely based upon my father's rational decision to understand the industry that my mother worked in, his industry, and where we were living geographically. See, my mom was there, but emotions got into the way. The whole feeling of living in this big, beautiful home, this nice area. Not to say that where we were living at the time was horrible. It's just that this new place was better. But rationalism trumped in. So my mom was upset, but she had to submit to my father. So in a nutshell, when you have this whole concept of submitting, right, you are, as a woman or a wife or whatever, submitting during those periods where an important decision has to be made. And you're trusting that he's acting with ration and that he is factoring in how this is going to make you feel and what's best for you, but more importantly, what's best for the entire family. But it's not this big power struggle where you wake up every day and you're wrestling with your husband or your boyfriend over who's going to have power and control. That's not what it is. And I'm not even the most religious person, right? But I at least have an understanding of what submission means in a religious sense, where you have this idea of, okay, yes, the woman submits to the man because the man is submitted to the Lord and he's submitted to his family. So he's not this sort of dictator who doesn't have to answer to anybody. And like I said before, if you're messing with somebody, right, you're in a relationship with somebody where you guys are thinking along the same lines or whatever, this whole concept of having to flex my power, it's my way, no, how come it can't be my way? That's not going to be there because you're on the same page. It's as simple as that. Both my parents had the same set of values. So this whole concept of submission, it was never there. Pops understood that's what mom handles. Mom understood that's what dad handles. That's just how it was. Like I said before, I'm not trying to be an expert. My channel and what I speak about, a lot of it is based upon how I grew up. And yes, I'm one of the fortunate few who did grow up in a two-parent household where dad was the alpha male. And by no means did that make mom weaker. By no means did that make mom inferior. By no means did that put her in a position where I didn't view women in the same light as I view a man. By no means. But unfortunately, we have so many folks who have not grown up in that environment, right? Or haven't even been around it. So this whole concept of submission has been completely perverted. You being strong or you being weak or whatever, that doesn't affect the whole concept of submission. You can be a strong person. It is what it is. But like I said before, by the omission of women, there is that emotional component that you guys have. And as a man, we can't have that. Not to say that we don't have emotions ourselves, but we have to be rational. So in those very important periods, who knows when they're going to come up? Maybe once a year, maybe every 4 years, maybe every 5 years. Yes, there's going to be that period where there's some issues going to come up. And for whatever reason, like I said before, even though you guys have the same values, right, you guys have the same sort of lifestyles, there's going to be that a critical decision that has to be made. But you guys don't see eye to eye. Where, yes, in that period, you do have to defer to your husband because you trust that he has submitted himself to whatever God or creed or convictions that he follows, and that he has shown that he wants to act on the best benefit of the entire family. You may hate it. You may be upset with him, but that is what submission is. It's as simple as that. So like I said, I'm not trying to take away from anything that you're saying or anybody else. I just have to put it out there. Because I do feel like, unfortunately, there isn't the input of black men and black women who have come from these homes that we want to build. These relationships that we say are a myth, oh, it's so elusive. There are black people that actually come from that background. And it is painful for me to really sit back, right, and have people who are there, close, but they're not there. Not because, you know, they're off or they're stupid or they have some sort of hidden agenda, but more so because they're not a product of the environment that they want to have. They're not. Me coming on here, I'm the last person to want to come on here and share my views and, you know, opinions, whatever. I'm very nonchalant. But over the last couple of years, you just see what's getting put out there. Whether it's on YouTube, Gen X, somebody writing a book, somebody doing some fake-ass, you know, special on single black women or the black family. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, yo, so many people got it fucking wrong. So it is what it is. That's my video. Hopefully you guys are able to understand where I'm coming from and truly understand what this whole act of submission means. It's not some wrestling shit. But, you know, I think I made myself clear. Y'all take it easy. God bless.